Good day to everyone, wherever you are in the world. We are so delighted to have you with us at our Call to Action conference. You are in for a real treat with this group of panelists from Australia. The title of their presentation is Call to Action to Support Kids Means to Support Parents. I think that's been a theme that's been running through quite a few sessions that I've been to today, and I'm so honored that they accepted our request to be one of our keynoters at the 2024 conference. And Jessica, take it away.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge country, and hoping that this will work. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see the beautiful map of Australia that shows you the lands that we are joining you from today. So, and there's circles in the locations of our speakers. So we've got people from South Australia, which is the circle at the closer to the bottom of the map, and we've got people from Queensland, which is the top circle, and then we've got myself joining you from Newcastle, a Awabakal country in New South Wales, which is that dot in the middle. So the work that we're going to be talking about today is being done on the lands of the Kaurna peoples and the Yagara and Turrbal peoples. So we'd like to acknowledge the Kaurna peoples and the Yagara and Turrbal peoples as the First Nation peoples on whose land this policy work takes place. And that's the work we're going to be talking about today. We pay respects to the Kaurna, Yagara and Turrbal people's elders, past and present. They hold the knowledge and hopes for their people and communities. We recognise the thousands of generations of children who have been born and raised across these lands and all the generations to come. We always try just to ground ourselves in the work that we do by reminding ourselves that we do this work because children and families need each other. I'd also just briefly like to acknowledge the Awabakal people, where I'm joining you from today, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. And we also want to pay our respects and acknowledge all First Nations people around the world, many of whom are overrepresented in child welfare systems, and pay our respects to any First Nations people that are joining us today. And then another quick introductory thing, because we're talking about policy advice and systems advocacy, systems level change advocacy being done by parents and family in child welfare and child protection, we just want to give everyone the opportunity to quickly just have a think about how well does your organisation or state create the conditions for parents and family to participate at a systems level. So if you just can use your devices to scan this code and just whack in we'll just give you a minute or two to have a bit of a go at this Mentimeter. I'm very, very excited to see that it's working. Brilliant. I'll just give you a couple of minutes. Looks like there's a real variation, which is exciting. And it's amazing to get the perspectives from around the world as opposed to just in Australia, where unfortunately we would be seeing quite a lot more in the blue and the pink zone, I suspect. So it's amazing to see this extraordinary, see the variation, but still lots of room for improvement, I think. Okay, so keep going. Continue to use the Mentimeter and log your thoughts and perspectives there, and we're going to use that to reflect back throughout at the end of the keynote, but also into the next session, which is an opportunity for more discussion on this topic. So I'm just going to kick into introductions now. Just quickly, myself. My name is Jessica. I use she, her pronouns. I work in the STRIDE team at Life Without Barriers, which is a big NGO in Australia. And I helped in the original setup of the Direct Experience Group in South Australia, which is one of the policy advisory groups that we're going to be hearing from today. I also work closely with parents and family with lived experience to do a range of different things around the country, especially in my home state of New South Wales and in the city of Newcastle, where I live. Now I'd just like to hand over to Crystal to introduce yourself, Crystal.
G'day everyone, my name's Crystal. I am a parent advocate with lived experience with the Family Inclusion Network in Southeast Queensland, and I was a founding member of our Australia's first ministerial advisory committee for parents in the child protection system, the Queensland Parents Advisory Committee.
Thanks, Crystal. And now I'll kick to Jenny, please.
Hi everyone, my name's Jenny Whitworth and I'm the coordinator of the Family Inclusion Network, or FIN, in Southeast Queensland. I work with Crystal and others, and our Family Inclusion Network is a systems advocacy program. So that's the heart of what we're talking about today.
Okay, and Rach?
Hi, my name's Rachel. I'm a parent with lived experience, and I work at Life Without Barriers as a peer support worker. And I'm involved in the Direct Experience group as well.
Brioni?
Hi everyone, my name is Brioni Carbines. I also use she, her pronouns. I have the privilege of working with Rachel and others with lived experience in my role with the Riley Foundation as Executive Officer. So I support the Direct Experience Group, build relationships and form their policy recommendations, and I also liaise with the South Australian Minister's Office who take on that advice, and hopefully we'll start to see some more action and traction. So great to be here today.
Fantastic. And we're also, I can see, joined by Jacinta and Hayley from Riley. Did you want to, in South Australia, did you want to quickly introduce yourselves as well?
Hi there, I'm Hayley. I'm chair of the Direct Experience group here in South Australia and have lived experience as a parent working through the system. Glad to be here.
Hi, my name's Jacinta. I'm from the Lived Experience and I'm Deputy Chair of the Direct Experience group here in South Australia, and I'm a newly employee from the Riley Foundation working with families.
Thank you, everyone. That's amazing.
And Jess, we've got Beck here as well, just so that, yeah, that's all right.
Please, Beck, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Beck. I'm a proud First Nations woman, mum of 5, grandmother of 3, first year of QPAC advisory board.
Fantastic. So we've got an extraordinary broad range of experience here. And I think we're going to be joined by one other person from the Queensland Parent Advisory Group as well. And she's just connecting to audio, and I'm going to put her on the spot as soon as she arrives, poor thing. Laura, would you like to quickly introduce yourself so everyone knows who you are? Might have some technical issues with Laura. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we'll jump back to Laura if she would like to introduce herself. Oh, she would?
Apologies.
Yep, that's all right.
Yeah, thank you for your patience. Hi, so I'm Laura Sheenan. I'm a parent advocate with FIN, and I'm also my last term on the Parent Advisory Committee. Sorry, I've literally just got through the door. Apologies, guys.
Oh, good. But it's amazing to have you here. And just it's just extraordinary to have such a range, a breadth of lived experience in the room, sharing all of your valuable expertise in the policy space. So parents' voices are so crucial, and so not heard anywhere near as much as they should. So I want to kick off with Rachel. You've been involved in the development of the Direct Experience Group right from the very beginning in South Australia. And I mean, I know you've been an advocate for change for a lot longer than that. why, and we were so excited to see the direct experience group being set up to provide policy advice to the Minister for Child Protection in South Australia. But why has it taken so long for ministers and policymakers to ask parents and family their advice in Australia?
I think basically there's a few reasons, but I think it's that perception of expertise. Typically in the past, it's something that's been done to parents, not with parents. I suppose handing over to parents was always troublesome. I think there was always a bit of a worry about what was going to happen. I'm a bit stuck here. Does anyone else want to add to that? No?
Well,
Yeah,
sorry,
I
go
can-
Jenny.
Yeah, I can jump in. You're so right, Rachel, with that word of worried about. I reckon you've hit the nail on the head, worried about what's going to happen. And for the Queensland experience, I think that was definitely the case. So I'm not sure what people were thinking was going to happen, but I know what happens when everyone's in the room. And you've been saying that too, Rachel, about what it was like on that first day and what people's reflections were, you know?
Yeah, I do. I remember, this is like, I'm talking a long time ago now, 2008, around then when we first tried doing this. A lot of workers, a lot of practitioners were worried that parents were going to get together and actually just sit there and bash the department. So, and I think, and that's not happened at all. You know, we're not sitting around bashing the department. We're actually talking about real change. And it's always surprising just how future focused parents are, considering, what they've been through. And it's not always just about themselves. They're there creating change for other people.
Yeah, so a real opportunity to give back and to support others, I think. Did anyone want to comment on one of the things that I've noticed in terms of resistance is that departments and practitioners and educators and whoever are often concerned that parents are only going to be concerned with their own needs, that they're not going to be concerned with children's needs. Rach, would you like to comment on that, or anyone else?
I just think that, it's not true, because we're there for our children. And I mean, it's about if we want to be child focused, then, we need to be family focused. Children want to be with their families. So it's about helping those families get better, fixing whatever's supposedly wrong with them or is wrong with them, and get the kids home where they want to be, where we know the outcomes are better for them.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And you're so backed up by the research there as well, Rach, about the child focus of parents and family. It's such a myth, isn't it? All right. So thanks, Rach. So I just want to hand over to you now, Crystal. You're an experienced parent advocate from Toowoomba, beautiful town, south west of Brisbane. Is that correct? Yep. So just thinking about your experience of the Queensland Parent Advisory Committee, which you were a founding member of, and you're now a parent advocate with the Family Inclusion Network of South East Queensland. Where are the opportunities for parents to make change? And can you give us some examples?
Absolutely. Since 2019, we've had endless opportunities, different consultations and experiences with so many different agencies, legal and the department and support services, the Human Rights Commission, the list just goes on. Most recently this year, the opportunities that I've been involved in that yeah, well, basically, because they're the most recent, they're the ones I'll speak about. We have met with and had consultations with a group of emerging leaders and 2 separate groups of senior team leaders within the department. We've been granted funding for a 3-year research project with a university here that's looking into peer parent family advocacy. And we've developed and implemented training, mandatory training for all new child safety officers that start within the department as of June this year. That kicked off. So
yeah, so real and tangible change as a result. Thank you, Crystal. That's amazing. So when you survey people before and after, like when you sort of dealing with people in the moment, like doing training, running groups with people, interacting across the spectrum of the child protection system, what is it that you're hearing before and after? Like, what are you seeing change in the way people perceive parents and family, and in the way they might work with families?
Absolutely. And I was going to read out some feedback that we had from one of our most recent surveys, because we do survey the people that we're engaging with before and after. And so before the session poll, we had someone comment that, having not previously engaged in a forum with parents, I'm experiencing a lot of nervousness in relation to the unknown. Having said that, I have been advocating for this sort of feedback process for many years. After that same session, we received feedback that stated, I was emotionally impacted and still am regarding the lived experience and the trust demonstrated by the sharing of stories. I was deeply moved to the extent that it has and will continue to positively impact the way I lead.
Okay, that's amazing. That's so good. And it's extraordinary, isn't it, how so much fear, I mean, parents and family have rightly so much fear of the system in terms of the system becoming involved in their lives, and that's absolutely justified. But extraordinary that practitioners and educators and others have some fear as well, which is really quite incredible and so important to break that down. Okay, so this I'd just like to kick to Briony, who has spent the last year and a half now, I think, setting up the direct experience group in South Australia. Congratulations, Briony, for this incredibly important work that you're doing. I know you're very interested in participation and accountability in child protection systems, which is what's brought you to this work. And we hear a lot about accountability in the system and participation by parents and family, and how we're not getting that right, how that's not where it needs to be, nowhere near really where it needs to be. Why haven't we got this right yet? What are the barriers and how can we overcome them?
Thanks, Jess, and very excited to be involved in this project. It's not quite a year and a half. It's one of those exciting projects that sometimes feel like I've been doing this forever and sometimes feels like 5 minutes. But I'm very, very proud of the work that the people involved in the direct experience group have done, partly because what you say of the trauma and the impact that their own experiences have had and continue to have the ripple effects on that, and how that builds a really strong sense of empathy for others going through the system or with particular similar experiences. Many of them also have intersecting contacts with other institutions and kind of systemic racism, poverty, violence, and lack of education and opportunities. So there's a lot of diversity and strength within the group, and there's also a lot of kind of pain and grief and loss and trauma. So it's balancing those realities to then create something new and different, and put that in language that a minister who works for the state government can understand, where, and see where the points need to change, whether that's in the law and the legislation, whether that's how the attitudes of practitioners on the ground, whether that's how funding is established in the first, for resources for families. So there's a lot of different aspects to it. But the first point, and in that establishment phase, was really around understanding how the system is playing out in people's lives. So I'm really passionate about people finding their own strength and voice to make change, but also placing that in context of how past policies have created the circumstances they're in, and how they can then influence back and make changes. So one of the challenges in South Australia is the inconsistency in how the law has been applied and how practice on the ground, you know, with particular application of policies and procedures is very different. So whilst we have a minister now who talks about the need for flexibility, we'd also need, you know, a level of consistency so we can understand, because at the moment, the system of child protection or child welfare in South Australia doesn't know what's happening. So until we can kind of determine what is happening, and the only way to do that is to get the people who are impacted directly by the policies and procedures and law together to discuss their experience and test that out, and what is kind of how that has impacted on their lives. Because what is written in policy and practices procedures is not always what's happening in the ground. So we did a lot of work to kind of safely share stories about people's experiences, place that in the context. Is this a common experiences? What are the common threads? What would we like to change? And at the same time, building skills in kind of systems thinking about how this plays out at a bigger level. And breaking that down and giving support. So balancing the sense of urgency that we know people are being impacted harmfully from what's going on right now, but also that we need to take time to consider that from different perspectives and build all the strength in diversity, so the group can come up with collective answers that will be stronger because they've looked at things from all different angles. So that's kind of how I see the processing accountability from our end really taking place, and why it's so important. From the other end, I guess it's also about decision makers and people in positions of power understanding that the ways that they're used to in terms of policy and practice being written is not necessarily bringing out the best. Because it is so top down. So they also need lessons in how do you actually listen to people? How do you not put pressure on, if there's time needed to, for people to get to know each other and build trust and come up with those different ideas and to have a look at them. So it's a dance of kind of balancing, immediate and long-term requirements, the needs of individuals and the needs of the collective. And hopefully, really progressing towards, big reform, big changes in South Australia. And, that can be also inspire people around Australia and hopefully in other parts of the world. And we're also learning from other parts of the world.
100%. And I think, something that stood out for me from what you just said is how accountability has to be relational as well. Like there's some hard sort of ways to hold systems to account, but we need to have that relational accountability as well. And I think it's what you said about people, the system allowing time for people to get to know one another and form those relationships and form a team and share their stories and learn skills is just so important, and something that the system really struggles with. I really liked what also you said about the inconsistency of the system and how parents and family can share their experiences that can be wildly different depending on the office, the worker, the whatever. So thank you, Bryony. Did anyone else want to comment on any of that? Probably got about 1 minute extra. Okay, well, good. All right, well, I'm just going to quickly go to next to hear from Jenny, who's also been a professional activist in this space for a long time. One of our stalwarts, Jen, you and Rach and others. So I'm keen to hear your thoughts as a long-standing activist in the family inclusion movement in Australia. What has the Queensland Parent Advisory Committee achieved? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, thanks. I think Crystal started listing some of the really significant things that the Queensland Parents Advisory Committee or the QPAC have achieved. And I want to also point out that just having a committee is a massive achievement. And if we've got North American, people listening to this, I want to, Brioni, you were just talking about learning from around the world. And so I want to give my thanks and recognise people like David Tobus, who Cindy Blackstock, Andy Bilson, people who are doing this sort of work around the world, know that people are listening and we're learning from you. The establishment of the Queensland Parents Advisory Committee was really helped by reading David's book, and by David actually was over here in 2019. And in terms of the things that the committee has achieved, I want to just keep harping on that the committee existing is a massive achievement. And continuing, I think we will always need to continue to fight for it to stay embedded. So in Australia, elections happen every few years and things can change. So we're heading towards that. I think holding on to the committee in Queensland, holding on to the one in South Australia is really, really important. And to do that, we use that evidence and we stand on the shoulders of people like David, and that helps us keep the committee there. I want to take you back to that. If you weren't there, I'll paint a picture. That day in 2019, Crystal was there. There was all the nervousness that Rachel talked about, the department meeting with a minister, meeting with parents for the first time ever in Australia, which is hard to believe. But there was a lot of nervousness, and we were really, really clear that the parents would be the majority in the room. So there was just one minister, an advisor, and one other person from the department coming into a room full of parents, and it was on a Saturday morning. So there was huge commitment, there was huge nervousness from everyone, but feeling the power of standing strong in the experience and speaking the experience to the person who can make the decisions, like Brioni was just saying. That minister heard all the parents in the room and she was convinced. And she said, okay, we're going to do this. And it's stayed through a few different changes. So I know we're in a rush, and there's also that tension, Brioni, that you said between, the sense of urgency and a feeling like we just want to change everything. I think it's really important to recognise when something exists, that it's powerful, and let's make it really part of the foundation of the way the department works forevermore. Parents at the table, and as many tables as possible. Yeah, so more successes, but I wanted to emphasise that, Jess, that we don't just go tick and move on.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Jen. And I think it's important to note that the Queensland Parent Advisory Committee has been through multiple ministers. We change our ministers here in Australia on a very regular basis. And those relationships have to be rebuilt with every minister. And that takes time, that takes skill. And that's an extraordinary achievement of both these committees. The South Australian Committee has been lucky enough to keep its minister for its year of operation so far. But that won't be the case forever. And they know that is, ministers change, and that's a dance that groups have to do. The other thing that really stood out for me from what you said, Jen, was just that really intentional challenging of the power imbalances and the example you gave was making sure that parents outnumber the other stakeholders in the room. And I don't know if anyone from South Australia wants to comment on that, because I know that was something that was discussed in South Australia as well. Rach, did you want to comment, or Brioni?
I missed that. What was that?
Just the intentional, making sure that parents outnumber the other stakeholders in the room at formal meetings when possible. If that was something that you were able to intentionally achieve as well. Briony or Rach, feel free to jump in.
Go, Briony.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really important lesson that we've gained from Queensland, and do try and replicate it. We've also been fortunate enough to create some peer roles, which Rachel kind of does so well. And that's recognising different experiences and making sure that I'm not just the centre of where parents, because I don't come with, lived experience myself. So we've had a peer communication specialist who was involved in the setup of the group and looking at kind of communications that we create. And then Rachel in with her experience and expertise in kind of offering that peer support, and she can offer advice and encouragement to parents in a different way that I can. So, come from some more of a social justice and community development background and can bring those skills. But Rachel brings that real kind of peer and that real deep understanding. And I think that's another element that we've been able to bring to the South Australian team that's been very beneficial for all involved. And also role modelling how their sector can look. And it's no coincidence, I don't think, that people on this panel and also on our follow-up workshop, pursuing and gaining skills in the career of supporting families more directly. They want to work at the individual level and also bring that knowledge into systems thinking. So it can be done, and it should be done.
Yeah, so we want to see family participation across the system, don't we?
And Jess, I want to just make one other example, just for inspiration, that as these committees take hold, more and more they become part of the way that the agency works. And just a couple of months ago at one of our recent committees, part of the department, the evaluation unit, came with a paper to get the endorsement of the committee. And that's really significant. And we kind of all looked at each other and went, why are they asking us, but just imagine that, in amongst those corridors of power, someone is saying, oh, you need to go and ask the parents that, and they do all their formal briefing, and off, they come to us.
Yeah, it just feels so crazy that it hasn't been happening the whole time, but such an extraordinary achievement that we need to really reflect on and learn from. Just a message to people listening. We are getting the odd question. We do have some material to get through, so any questions that we don't get to in this keynote, we will definitely take up in the discussion session to follow. So I just want to quickly jump to Crystal again. To Rachel. You've been a parent advocate since 2008, and you're one of the key founders of the family inclusion movement in Australia. So what's the history of family systems advocacy in Australia? And can you see signs of change across the country?
Yeah, I can definitely see signs of change. They actually let us in the door now, not just saying, yeah. So I suppose back in the day, it was more just like, if we were to turn up with a family, it would be like, who was this? They were very skeptical, didn't want to let us in. Now it's definitely not like that. We're much more accepted. So that's great for families. Geez, I'm really lost today.
Rachel, just to remind you, you just told me stories of when you first started being an advocate, that you were the only parent in the room. Did you want to tell us about that when you founded the Family Inclusion Network?
Yeah, well, that's true. I was the only parent, so it was mainly practitioners. Everyone was trying really hard to get it to work, but I suppose we didn't have the involvement of parents that we have now, and it was, I think there was always arguments between practitioners about what was going to work and what wasn't. Mainly, there was always fears about getting parents together, and definitely unfounded fears. We haven't had any of those issues that they thought we would have. Pretty much, they thought that we were going to be getting parents together and it was going to create more trouble, and that hasn't happened. I suppose a lot of it in the past has been like tokenistic as well, where we've had that. I know, Jess, you call it that pop-up parent syndrome-y thing, where we've had parents come along and talk about their story, and you know, it tugs on everyone's heartstrings, and it ticks some boxes, and then they're given a box of chocolates and they go home again. Now I think parents that are involved today are actually listened to on a much deeper level. They're participating and making like real positive changes. Yeah, I see that it's moved along a lot. I'm not sure what else to say.
That's great. That's fantastic. And I think you're right. I think the movement, it has now become much more of a movement in Australia, the family inclusion movement, and that for our international listeners is really referring to parent and family peer advocacy in all of its different guises around the system in Australia. So we have made significant progress, and we have to remember that sometimes, because there's so much more work to do. Like, there's just so much more to do. It is useful, I think, to reflect on how far we've come. I have lots of other questions, but I'm just very aware of the time. So I'm just going to go to everyone and just ask you all, this work is so, you know, it's heart work, it's relational work, it's deeply political work. What have you all got personally and professionally out of this work? And I just encourage everyone on the group. I know there's people here that are here primarily for the discussion afterwards, but if anyone would like to comment, everyone's welcome to comment on this. But I'll kick it off just by going to you, Jen. What have you got personally and professionally out of the work?
I've got a lot. I have grown. I think I have improved in my, you know, I used to think I was non-judgmental. We're all judgmental. You know, this work helps us check our bias every minute. It really does. And I've, you know, personally, I've got to know some really, really cool people, keep me grounded. That helps in your own life, in your own family life. That diversity of people I'm working with, Crystal, Beck, the whole crew. Laura has taught me a lot. So, you know, it's the group. It's the group.
Okay. I'll just go to you, Rach. What have you got personally and professionally out of the work?
Same as Jen, I've grown a lot. I've met some great people. Just seeing how everything's changing has been really rewarding. I've also got a job out of it, so that's been good. Just really happy to be still working with parents and seeing the parents that I'm working with today, how much change they're making, how much effort they put in, just not just to change their own lives, but to change other people's lives. I think that's the most rewarding part of it.
Thanks, Rach. Crystal?
Rach stole my answer. I got a job out of it. But in all seriousness, it's a job that I never ever imagined myself doing. I was a professional stay-at-home mum prior to this and had no idea what career path or anything I wanted to pursue when the kids got a bit older, and here I am, but it's so fulfilling. I've had an immense amount of healing just sharing my stories with parents and hearing their stories as well. Made some lifelong friends. It's yeah, I could go on, but
Briony and anyone else who wants to jump in, don't feel like you can't say anything at this point.
Yeah, reflected in what the other people on this panel have said, but I guess the other aspect is really drawing inspiration and understanding from past, and how, you know, there's no real stop-start in terms of people's lives and the impact of policy. So we're dealing with the legacy of bad policy primarily, but we have the opportunity to create much better scenarios and situations for people going forward. And we to do that, just so inspired about how child focused. You brought that up at the start, Jess, of how child focused and how people are really surprised at that, and that's disappointing, but something that we can change and will be changing. It's the view of parents thinking about their own children, but also, you know, the many children to come in this state, and how we want to create a better world is fantastic, and I love it so much. So it's seeing our place in the timeline of things, making the best we can, and really affirming that, getting people together, even when there's different experiences and people challenge each other, and there's not always shared agreement, but doing that in a really respectful way, and kind of really unpacking what is the issue here, and what do we want to work towards, just comes up with fantastic ideas. Some of them seem so simple, and that's the best ones and the winners, I think, that we'll start to see some action on soon. So I hope, you know, we can come back in a few years and tell all the fantastic success stories of the South Australian team, and, you know, hear more similar projects from around the world. That's what I hope.
Thanks so much. If we are now right at the end of our keynote presentation, so my apologies that we weren't able to get to questions, but I have copied those questions, and I will put them in the chat, I hope, if the copy works, for the next session. So we will address those questions. We're going to shift now to a discussion format where everybody in this group will be participating, and I'll just quickly pop up slides just so that we can, if I can just quickly share them again, so that we can just reflect on this session a little teeny bit. I'll take you to the next slide if it works. Yeah, so just a question, like if we're we just want to leave you with this question, like, why wouldn't we involve parents and family in this work at all levels, at the individual level, the group level, the community level, and the systems change level? We so desperately need to change the system, and it's parents and family themselves who are the best leaders in that change. And if you need advice and tips about how to do this, stay with us, because we will be answering questions, or parents and family themselves will be answering questions about how to make that happen, because we just need to ask parents and family to get that advice and tips. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Here's our contact details are up here. I think this session is being recorded, so you'll be able to check these contact details at any time. It's been an absolute pleasure convening this group. And we hope to see you shortly. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to all of you. And then just for those of you who are in Attendee Hub, I would just encourage you to go to the right-hand side and fill out the survey related to this session. And you have all now been invited to their next session, where they'll go into more detail about all the amazing work happening down under. So thank you again so very much.